Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan. And the topic of this 10-minute moan is the unusual case of Marine Le Pen and what it actually means, because a lot of people are just putting up a big headline saying embezzlement. So I'm going to have a wee bit further deep dive into this as much as I can from a foreign country. So most of you will probably be aware that Marine Le Pen has been found guilty of the big scary word embezzlement and has been banned from taking public office for 5 years in France, which means the next presidential election in 2027, she's kind of barred from taking part in that because it's obviously within her term of 5 years. Now, every outlet has got these big headlines, embezzlement and millions of euros and stuff like that, right? And then you go, oh, that's quite scary. And I thought, well, what's she actually done? Right, that's quite important to me. I always look behind the headline. So what her and her party have done, now what you also need to bear in mind, because most people will be unaware of this, there was 24 other members of her party also found guilty. 25 including her. And there was one guy, an accountant, he was found not guilty. So there was 26 people up at court with this embezzlement thing. And what it basically is, the European Parliament give your party money so you can pay for assistance and things to go to Parliament. Very similar, if not identical, to what we have in the UK, which is a thing called short money, where every party, apart from those in government, get paid an amount of money to allow them to have staff at Westminster supporting their MPs. Now, the reason I know about short money is when we were trying to get the SNP low votes and low seats in the general election, the big thing was this party are like skin. So we wanted to affect their short money. So I spoke to someone from a main party in the United Kingdom, somebody with lots of MPs, right? And I was speaking to them, I said, look, if we win this and we do well with this, and the SNP get a lot of votes less, what does it mean that they'll lose? Because there's other monies that they get in. And I said, but the short money will no count, because the short money is you only get to pay for folk at Westminster. So if you've nobody at Westminster, you don't need that money, so it's no short. And he was like, no, that's not the way it works. That's the way it's meant to work. But what he assured me back then was that every party in the UK kind of abuse their short money. And what they do is they use it for other things. And they'll put down that somebody's doing a project at Westminster when in reality they're sitting in their headquarters doing something else. He went, so that £10 million, that's how much the SNP lost in short money over a 5-year parliamentary cycle, will really hurt them. So this means it's common practice in the UK for a similar type scheme. So all these people who are virtual signalling and, oh, that's terrible, need to have a good look at their own parties, because I'm quite sure that they'll be doing the same out of Westminster government. But however, that's what our party done, right? Now this was for crimes in the time scale, where are we? Here's the time scale, I did get this information. Between 2004 in 2016, and it was multi-million. It was about €3 million or something. It was a bit worked out at £250,000, €1,000 per year, right? And it was between 2014 and 2016. Now, Le Pen has only been a leader since 2011. So she's only had control of the party for 5 years out the 12 years that, you know, they were given these charges for. But the weirdest thing that everybody kind of has missed, Le Pen's charges were only for 400 grand. Le Pen is personally responsible for diverting £474,000. So it's no embezzlement as in taking the money out of a party or out of a body and put it in your back pocket. It's moving the money from Brussels and been using it in France, which I would suggest, now that we know that that's common practice in the United Kingdom, is probably common practice for loads of parties, if not all of them, at Brussels as well. So I think we need to just go and arrest all them, right? But I find it bizarre that she was responsible in their eyes for €478,000, and obviously over a 5-year period out of the 12 years in total. Yet she's had by far the biggest sentence. She's got a suspended 2-year sentence. She's going to 4 years. Sorry, she's going to have 2 years with a bracelet on, and she's banned for public office for 5 years. Out of the 24 people charged, by far the biggest, right? Now, what you also need to take into consideration is, what she said is, this is a woman that was winning the polls, not by much, but she was winning the polls for a election that's not going to happen for 2 years. So things could change, but right now, as we speak, she was the favourite. And she's already declared that one of the things she would do if she got to power would be to have a Brexit time referendum in France to break away from the EU. And guess who's pushed for these charges, right? So there's two loads of people that would have it in for this woman. One, EU and Brussels themselves, because they don't want anybody else to leave their power. And two, those that are in power just now in France, because obviously she's leading the polls, so it kind of suits them as well. So there's lots of backstory to this that nobody's looking at, and there's lots of details that nobody's even publishing that I've just told you about, the length of time, what it actually was for, and the amount of money that she's apparently moved from Brussels into a main party to pay for people at party level, party HQ, as opposed to being at Brussels. And that's, in my opinion, common practice. But what does it mean in real terms? Well, obviously she can appeal this, but there's certain people saying even if she appeals it, this 5 years from public office is non-negotiable, right? So the big outcome of this is the woman who was most likely to win right now, and that could change, and it was a small margin, but the person leading the polls right now cannot stand now in that election in 2027, regardless of apparently what happens to appeal. And this is stinking for me because I believe in democracy, and I actually believe that some people are allowed a different opinion from me, which is unusual because most people are quite, it's my way or the highway. But people are allowed different opinions, and I think that's important. But those in power, certainly in America, in France, and in our own country in Great Britain, we've seen certain things, particularly in Britain, where anybody who is a dissenting voice against the current power get treated different for people who aren't. And we don't need to have a video about two-tier justice, we just need to accept that's a thing. I mean, now you know there's a thing called two-tier sentencing in the UK as well. In America, we also seen what was attempted to happen with Trump, who was, he was brought up on a lot of charges before his election, which was obvious attempts to anybody outside it to try and stop him from even standing for election. And this is an abuse of democracy. And I see this abuse of democracy in the UK, I see it in the USA, I see it in France, and I'm seeing it now in the EU. So it's probably happening right across the board. Where if anybody, particularly if they're considered to be right of centre, whether they're away to the right or even just right of centre, they tend to be the biggest targets for this type of behaviour. And it's actually warming to see that some people who are opponents to the National Rally Party in France have come out and said that this is an appalling attack on democracy. And I actually genuinely agree with it. Now, you will see a lot of people that are as far right as National Rally all across Europe. They'll be coming out and saying how terrible this is, and people that are right of centre like Elon Musk have already come out and made comment about it, and that you've got to expect, right? But when it's people who are not in her party, who are opposition to her, saying the same, then you kind of got to take that on board. What happens next? I don't know. What I do know is the French people have got a history of, they kind of don't like it when the high hegians don't listen to them. When the people in power don't listen to the people in France, then they kind of sometimes push against that more than people in other parts of Western society. So that's a possibility. There might be civil actions and civil disruption in France if the French, and who am I to say because I'm no French, but you've got to think that if she's leading the polls, then there's it's not the majority because it's about 30 odd percent is the biggest percentage over there now, I think. So it's not like the majority are French, but the biggest group wanted her to be president. So you've got to imagine that they'll not be happy. If I'm not happy standing, thousands of miles away from it, you can imagine the people in France who are more engrossed in it will be even more angry than somebody me who just sees it as a bad slight on democracy. And I think it's worrying that this thing that I believe, not only her party and not only people in the EU, but people even in the United Kingdom with short money, do this sort of thing. It's like an accepted practice. And although there's millions of pounds worth of it, and she's got the biggest sentencing, we also need to take a step back and say, well, hold on a minute. She was a party leader for 5 out of the 12 years. She was one of 25 people up at court, and her part in embezzlement that she was charged with was 474,000. Yet there was multi-million pounds worth of this stuff. I find this all rather odd. And I would imagine that anybody, regardless of where you are in the political spectrum, anybody with even a modicum of respect for democracy will see right through this and see it for what it is. So if you enjoyed the video and you want others to see it, there's 3 things you can do. You can do 1, 2 or 3 of these things and it will help the channel's video. Click the thumbs up button, put some comments in and hit share. And if you've not already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel. If you're enjoying this video, YouTube at the end of the video put a video in the bottom corner here for you. That's one that you've not seen that they think you will like from a collection. But the most important thing of all, unless you're the type of people who are actually becoming dictators all over the Western world and will actually try and kill off any opposition that looks as if they might oust you, then know you. But
everyone else, have a great day. Cheerio, bye now.